Sal Berry.
Old man Sal, he remembers the Blackhawks when they were the Blackouts, when they didn't have their home games on TV.
And Tim Parish.
He's a pest. He's a rat, but he's good. He's good at it. I don't think there's a team in the league that wouldn't want him on their team.
This is the Puck Junk Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Puck Junk Podcast. I'm Sal Berry and with me is Tim Parish, aka The Real DFG. Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. If I was any better, I'd be twins.
Yeah, I think you've said that before, and I said Sutter twins or Sedin twins.
Okay, well then, if I was any better, I'd be you. How about that?
Oh, two of me. That's awesome.
Is that a new one?
Yeah, it is. But I'm unfortunately I'm not a twin. If I had twins, if I had like multiple copies of myself, I'd get so much more done. Like my card collection would be organized, all my freelance writing would be done, all the schoolwork would be graded. It'd be awesome. But unfortunately, I'm just one guy, and that's why we can only do one podcast a week. Well, because we're each one guy with different schedules, and then there's Jim Howard, the geologist, who's busy digging rocks or something this week. So I don't know. So if you're not moving, he's digging rocks and I'm grading papers. So that's the lives we lead.
At least he's digging rocks for a profession instead of like on a chain gang or something.
So I know you've been kind of a little bit intermittent the last couple of weeks. You've been moving, and I'm sure you have all these pent up things that you want to talk about. So we're going to talk about the All-Star Game. That's going to be our big topic for today. But anything you just want to get out there? Any of your takes for the NHL over the past couple of weeks or past week or so?
Yeah. So as everybody has well heard, at least since I've been on, Vegas fired their head coach. So that happened a little bit ago. So it's probably old news for most, but since I haven't been on the show, I haven't got to weigh in on my thoughts on the whole thing. So if I may,
please.
I absolutely hated when I heard that happened. Absolutely hated it. Didn't understand it. It didn't make any sense. I was completely floored by the whole thing. And I think a lot of people were. And, the more I've had to think about it, obviously the statistics and the standings that Vegas had currently weren't horrible, but they weren't what it's been last year or the year before. Call it injuries, call it a slump, but they're just not playing with the same passion that they did when they made it to the finals. But I hardly think that that's attributable to their coach. To go in and fire a coach that's got, what was his win rate? It's like over 600, right? He wasn't even, I think he was above 500 as far as win percentage. And to fire him in the midst of a season where you're almost still a first place team. I mean, they were only a couple points away from where they needed to be. So,
well, it shows me that Vegas went from being one of these teams that had like this long-term vision and this long-term plan to like a team that now they're just kind of like every other team. And somebody else said that. I'm not claiming that that's my original thought. Somebody else said that. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? They're right. They kind of, like you famously said on this podcast a couple years ago, the NHL is a copycat league. And it's like one team does something and then the other teams do something. So now everybody's firing their coach mid-season because they want to become the St. Louis Blues and be like, hey, we need to fire our coach mid-season and turn things around and win the Stanley Cup. And I mean, obviously that doesn't happen very often.
No, and that's exactly kind of what we have here. And that's why you hear a lot of the talking heads in the hockey world basically saying the same thing. Are we at that point where everybody views, hey, look at the St. Louis Blues. They were last place and they won the Stanley Cup. So, hey, we can do something too. Let's make a move. I don't know if that's really what it is because, I mean, look, you got a Jack Adams Trophy winner, right?
Yep.
a guy that basically built the team and created a juggernaut out of an expansion team,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
He's beloved by the fans there. The team loves him. The city loves him. He does a lot in the community out there. He's well seen. People know who he is, and they love this guy. And then to turn around and say, you know what, we're just underperforming, even though they're better than 80% of the other teams in hockey. And not only that, look who they hired, Pete DeBoer.
Oh,
Like
that's funny. That's funny.
The arch nemesis. Like, you remember? Was it last year?
Yeah, no, of course I remember. And yeah,
Yeah.
he's going to teach his guys how to score 4 goals in a 5-minute power play. That's going to be what he brings to the team. Okay, guys, here's how you score 4 goals with a 5-minute man advantage. You know, I mean that's
the thing. You got
funny.
you got this coach who went from being public enemy number one to the guy that everybody had a beef with a season ago. I mean, you remember that whole chirping thing that, you know, Gallant was accused of chirping players and he should have kept his mouth shut. And it turned out there were mics on the ice and they played back the different mics from the benches and essentially heard what he really was saying. And he really wasn't, he was actually talking to the referee and not the players. And it was just this whole thing that got blown out of proportion. And, you know, the two of them went at each other in the press. And it's like, you know, it's kind of a slap in the face to a guy that was kind of like the hero, the fatherly figure hero of the very first professional sports team that this city ever had. And see, this was Vegas's first taste of, this is the reality of the sports world, and people in management are expendable because you can't really fire players. You know, those that are Vegas people that have come from other areas and things like that latched onto this team. And I mean, just look at the attendance. I mean, they've been sellouts since the inception of the team. I mean, the city loves the Golden Knights.
I mean, the games look like fun to go to.
I
would love to go to one of those games. And you know what? I love the theatrics. I'm sorry. I do. I loved when they did all those things with the playoffs, with the Knight on the ice and fighting the whatever, like he was fighting the King in one round or whatever. And I think it's fun. Who cares if it's not traditional hockey? It's fun, you know.
Well, that's the thing. It's Vegas. You expect a show. When you go to Vegas, you expect everything to be a show. From the shows you go to sitting in a casino, to going and watching a band, or going and seeing something, or picking up your dry cleaning. Everything's a show. It's just a big show because that's what that town is. So the fact that they latched onto it like they did as a fan base, you know, like I said, this is their first taste of it. They're going to soon find out because they're going to get the Raiders and probably an NBA team. And we all know the Raiders are the Raiders, and they're just a disappointment year after year most of the time.
Well, they'll get the Raiders until they go back to Oakland again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They've got the whole plan and the stadium and everything else coming along. So, but anyway, I mean, back to the point. So you bring in DeBoer as your coach, right? I don't know if as a GM, if we were in the same position with George McPhee as GM, because he's no longer the GM and he became the whatever he is, consultant, president of operations, whatever that means. And Kelly McCrimmon's in there. Gallant's obviously not his guy. Right. So a GM wants their guy, or they want a guy that they know can be their guy. And Gallant just wasn't his guy. And so he wanted a change for some reason. And Pete DeBoer ended up being that guy, which totally blows my mind because think about it. Why did he get fired in San Jose? Well, San Jose wasn't winning. And San Jose went from being a fairly dominant team in the Pacific to starting to disappear and have talks that they may or may not make the playoffs. And most of that can be contributed to one thing. The goaltending has sucked in San Jose. And guess what? Here you have Vegas, And ever since Fleury came back from when his dad passed away, he's been playing like not good. He's been sucking essentially. So, I mean, he's been going through some stuff obviously, and he just hasn't been the same Fleury. So his save percentage and wins percentage and everything else is kind of skewed. And that's the thing. You got to have goaltenders behind your starter if your starter gets in trouble that can pull off some wins. And just like you see in Toronto, if it's not their starter, if it's not Freddie Anderson playing every night, they're not getting the wins from their backups. Vegas isn't either. The Sharks aren't either. So you have a coach that was fired because of bad goaltending, hired to coach a team with bad goaltending. I don't get it. And, I can go on and on and on about this whole thing. This has happened to Gerard Gallant twice now in a short amount of time. Overall. I mean, the lifespan of a coach is what, 3 years? I think we figured it out one time. It's about 3 seasons. He got tossed out in Florida, and basically they didn't even call him a cab or give him a car to the airport. I mean, there were those pictures that came out of him hailing a cab on the street corner.
Oh yeah, that's infamous.
Yeah, and the fact that that Vegas now waited until they were on this long road streak or like road trip to can Gerard Gallant. It's kind of like, I hope they bought him a plane ticket back at least.
Yeah, they got him an Uber. Yeah, I was surprised that Gallant was fired. I was surprised that DeBoer was the guy who replaced him. I don't know who I would have hired. I don't think I would have made that coaching change. There's one coach that I like that's on the market right now, and that's Peter Laviolette. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Laviolette will end up on another team, coaching another team. I think when you're an NHL coach and you're fired, you got most of the time you have time on your side because your contract's guaranteed. You know what I mean? So there's really no incentive to unless A, you want a job, or B, they're going to pay you more. You know what I mean? Like Joel Quenneville, when the Blackhawks fired Joel Quenneville, he was just like, all right, well, I'm just going to make my $6.25 million a year and not coach, go skiing, which is what he did, so.
Right. And that makes sense for somebody that doesn't necessarily A, need it, or B, want it at that point in time. Because look, it's a grueling season in hockey, especially when you're coaching or playing for a team that's a perennial playoff team, because your season goes a heck of a lot longer. And if you're that good, like the Blackhawks were at one point in time, I mean, they're going deep into the playoffs, more than 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, all the way to the cup. So you got long, long seasons. So the fact that you can financially take a break, take a year off, take 2 years off, do whatever you want to do until you get that urge to coach again, you're doing it on your terms, right? Everybody wants you. Everybody wanted Coach Q. Anybody that needed a coach would have killed to have him. But it was on his terms when he decided to come back, and he picked exactly where he wanted to be. DeBoer hadn't been fired that long. I mean, he was still fairly a fresh firing.
Yeah.
And, the Laviolette thing, I mean, him too. He's going to get another job. Heck, he'll get another job before Babcock does, I bet.
Oh, yeah. And I'm kind of secretly hoping that the Blackhawks pick up Laviolette. Not that I have anything against Colleton. My problem is actually not with the Blackhawks coaching. My problem is that they they trade players. As soon as they get a little bit good, they trade them. It's hard for me to get attached to any Blackhawk players. Like when people say, who's your favorite Blackhawk? It's hard for me to answer that question because it was a year ago, I would have told you, man, I'm really starting to like Dominic Cahoon. Well, guess what?
I like Dominic Cahoon a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
he's a great player.
He's good, and I was
his on ice awareness shocks me. It really does.
And you know what's funny was that last summer, or late spring, or it was early summer, I picked up a bunch of his young guns for 75 cents each or something. I grabbed 6 or 7 of them. I'm like, yeah, he's going to be on the team for a while. Maybe I'll get these signed. Maybe they'll appreciate in value, whatever. I mean, and then he gets traded to the Penguins. And I'm just like, now I have all these Dominic Cahoon cards that don't do me no good. And what's even funnier is that somebody that I traded with in Germany, he's like, "Oh, you like Dominic Cahoon?" And he sent me like a bunch of like stickers because Cahoon played in the German league, so he had all these like German league stickers. Dominic Cahoon. It's like, "Oh, here's some Dominic Cahoon stickers for your collection," and I'm like, "Thanks, but yeah, he just got traded." So
Yeah, but look what you got in return. Oli Mata. What a stud.
sure. So speaking of Blackhawks, because I want to talk a little bit about Patrick Kane, because I got to watch the game where he scored his 1,000th point on an assist of a Brandon Saad goal. It was really nice. Kane to Carpenter to Saad for the goal. 1,000 points. He's a 90th player to hit 1,000 points. He's 10th all time as far as American-born players go. And he is also the fastest American to reach that milestone. He did it in just under, let me take a look here. He did it in 953 games, and he got to 1,000 points. And he's still got a lot of gas in the tank left. You know what's funny is that the way the Blackhawks have not had very good seasons the last couple of years, but Kane has had his best seasons. It's just funny how like he had great seasons when they won the cup, but post 2015, I mean, he's won an Art Ross trophy, and he's hitting these, obviously now he's hitting milestones, but he's been having like career years year after year these past couple of years. It's just kind of funny how that worked out. Usually you see like a guy have like a career year and lead his team to the cup, and it's kind of like the other way around a little bit, where like, yeah, he did win the MVP trophy one year. But I mean, the Blackhawks were just so stacked that year, probably could have gone, to 3 different players. But the other thing I want to say, though, is that I'm really, really, really grateful that I was able to see this game on TV. And I had to put out on Twitter just to kind of show, like, old man Sal, he remembers the Blackhawks when they were the Blackouts, when they didn't have their home games on TV. And I remember, like, listening to the radio when Dennis Savard was at 999 points, and listening, and he set up an Al Secord goal. So it was in the 89-90 season, and that was his 1,000th point. And I remember hearing it on the radio, and I just, Chicago Stadium was always loud, but I remember it just sounding especially loud that game, like Pat Foley giving the call and being all excited, and just like I could just hear like the audience just like swell and explode into cheers. But like, I never saw the play. I don't know if the road team televised that game, because this was still in the day when certain teams like Winnipeg, wasn't Winnipeg they were playing when Savard scored, but teams like Winnipeg sometimes wouldn't send a camera crew on the road. They wouldn't televise their road games. They just wouldn't, or not all of them. Some of them they just didn't bother. I remember that because I'd like watch the highlights, and sometimes they'd be like, courtesy Pittsburgh Sports Network or courtesy Pass Network in Detroit, and like they'd say, yeah, no video of the game because the road team didn't televise it.
In this day and age that we live in with instant media, that just seems like a strange foreign thing.
Well, I mean, it's even funny telling people like, yeah, I had to wait until the next day to see what the score was if the game went on past my bedtime. But if the game was too late, then they would just say it was a late game. And the newspaper would just say, late game, we don't have the score.
Right.
Unless you
buy
the 5-star sports final, right? In the afternoon would have the updated sports scores, right?
Yeah.
But Chicago even used to have something called the Chicago Hockey Hotline, where you'd call and they would like give you an update on stuff. But so anyways, it's awesome that I was able to see that game.
Does Kramer run that?
Kramer?
Did Kramer run that?
Kramer from Seinfeld?
Yeah.
No.
Like he did the movie phone?
No. This was, it's funny because
why don't you just tell me what you want to see?
I think I ordered tickets on Movie Phone exactly one time, which was just kind of like, yeah, okay, it was an experience. So anyways, congratulations to Patrick Kane on his 1,000th point, and congratulations to all the Blackhawk fans who got to see it either in person or on television. And the other thing I want to say is that it's really freaking nice to have a first overall pick that like meets or exceeds all expectations. I mean,
oh yeah,
obviously you've experienced that a few times. You've had Mario Lemieux and you've had Sidney Crosby on your teams. The Blackhawks,
Dogger, Malkin.
Well, yeah, those weren't first overall picks, but those
Not
are
first
still
overall, but
right. But
still first round.
Yeah, I know, but the Blackhawks have had good first round picks also, and they've had a lot of bad ones. Sergei Krivokrasov comes to mind. Name a bad Blackhawk draft pick. Who is Sergei Krivokrasov, right? I mean, that would just be like that's my go-to for like just the bad drafting that the Hawks did for many years. And you know what? Patrick Kane was rated first overall by Central Scouting. Dale Talon took him with the first overall pick. It was kind of a no-brainer. But I'm just like so thankful that he didn't end up being I don't know, Brian Lawton.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a good broadcaster though now. He's got a lot of insight. I mean, you watch all the different shows with I call them all the talking heads, and you get those guys that come on and like to blow their own horn all the time, but then you get other guys that have a lot of good insight into the game. He's one of them. So
yeah, he's good. I'll tell you the guys that I like on that on like NHL tonight. I like Ken Danico.
Yep.
And I like Stu Grimson. But I have a fondness for Stu anyways. But those two. Oh, and Kevin Weeks, of course.
Yeah. I like Weeksy and I like Mike Rupp. The
Rupp
two of
is
them
good,
together,
too.
Mike Rupp and Kevin Weeks together, I think is a great team. I've said it before. I think they should be put on assigned to a team and do like the color and play-by-play, the two of them. I think it'd be pretty good.
They'd do a good job. I'd like to see maybe put Kevin Weeks between the benches instead of Pierre McGuire.
There you go. That's a good idea. So there was one other thing I wanted to bring up.
Please.
That happened while I was missing.
While you were away.
And that's the whole Zach Kassian suspension.
Oh, this old news, water under the bridge. 2 games. Let's move on and look forward.
Well, I mean, and I don't want to beat a dead horse because everybody's pretty much said kind of the same things. You've seen what went on, right? You've seen the hits and all of that kind of thing. So the first hit, I thought, watching it, to me, that first hit looked a bit high. It looked like he was targeting the head. It looked like he was targeting the neck area. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. Obviously, we leave that to the Department of Player Safety and George Peros, who actually said that he's going to be at that game when they play again. They're gonna show up and be there to watch just in case something breaks out. But I don't know. They didn't call a penalty. The refs didn't call a penalty on the ice, and that was it. So whatever, move on. I think that first hit was a dirty hit. The first one.
Okay.
But anyway. Now, I don't have an issue with the second hit because he basically clocked him. I mean, that second hit was solid. I wouldn't call that one illegal per se, but I really don't have an issue going forward with Kassian basically coming to his own defense and policing the situation after he got his freaking helmet knocked off for the second time. And yeah, I understand you're trying to take this out of the game and take that out of the game and make it more skills based and not have fighting and not have the big hitting and not have all of that kind of stuff. But here's the thing. If you're on the ice, I mean, you play hockey, granted it's, rec league or beer league or whatever you want to call it. You play hockey, but if there's a guy out there that's just, I mean, he just feels like he wants to be a goon and be the old time hockey guy, and he's taking a run at everybody, and you get clocked by him. Okay, whatever. It was a hard check, But then you find that he's watching you the whole time, and he's squaring you up, and it's going to come. You just don't know when. And then all of a sudden, you turn around backwards, and he's already coming at you, and there's nothing you can do, and you get clocked a second time. That's embarrassing because it's coming and he's gunning for you and you're going to look like a fool because you got laid out twice and Kassian snapped. And I understand that. he goes off the rails and he grabs Matthew Tkachuk like a rag doll and he just flings him around as he repeatedly starts pounding him. Call it old time hockey, call it whatever you want, call it, borderline assault. I don't care. I think he had a right to defend himself because he just had enough, and that was the end of that. So he continued to beat the living crap out of Matthew Tkachuk. Now, do I think Tkachuk should have answered the bell and fought? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Obviously, everybody likes to see a hockey fight, right?
Right.
But he's a pest. He's a rat, just like Brad Marchand is. But he's good. He's good at it. Like, he's really good at it. I don't think there's a team in the league that wouldn't want him on their team. I don't think there's a team in the league that wouldn't want Brad Marchand on their team. He annoys the crap out of everyone, and people can't stand him. But at the same time, you'd want him on your roster because he's that kind of player. I mean, he's just a straight up gem for his team. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, he doesn't have to fight, right?
Right.
He doesn't because he's out there to provide a job, one job. And that job is to be a pest and to piss everybody else off to the point where it incites a riot and draws a penalty. And that's exactly what he did. He drew the penalty. They went on the power play. They scored and they won the game. So he did his job. And I mean, there's something to be said for that. So, for him to play like that and play what they consider he plays on the edge or whatever, if you want to call him dirty, if you want to call him playing on the edge, I call him a rat. But one way or another, if that's how he's going to play, so be it. But you better be ready to answer the bell at some point. That's all I have to say about that, because you're going to get clocked. And one of these days, somebody that's bigger and tougher than Zach is going to come to the defense of whoever you take it to.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have to answer the bell. So.
Well, I'll tell you this. If I'm the Oilers right now, and if I'm their, if I'm the Oilers coach, I would want all of my guys to check Matthew Tkachuk. Like, I'd say, all right, you know what? If Zach goes after Tkachuk, and Zach can't be on the ice every time Tkachuk's on the ice, right? So, I mean, this is what I would do. I mean, it's a league that allows hitting. It's a league that allows fighting. I would tell my guys, you know what? Hit him every time you're out there. I don't care who you are. First line, fourth line. You see Matthew Tkachuk out there, hit him. That's what I would do. You know what I mean? I'd let the team stand up for Cassian and send a message. That's what I would do. And again, this is within the rules, right? Hitting is allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah. He gets the puck. You just knock him on his ass, knock him flying. That's what I mean,
that's the thing. They've changed the rules to the point where you have to be obviously making a play. You can't hit a defenseless player, right?
Right.
So you have to be making a play on the puck or on the player that is playing the puck and essentially make a hockey play. It's when you turn it into something that's something different. Because like I said, the first hit he hit on Cassian was kind of hunched over a little bit and bent down. I'm not necessarily saying it was a blindside hit per se, but I think he did target the head on that one. The second one was a pretty clean hit. It was just devastating. So, but like I said, at that point he had enough. So he basically snapped. But I mean, you've had every hockey player pretty much in the league weigh in on this whole thing. And whether they like or don't like either of those players, I think is besides the point. You have people that are, how do I best say this? You have people that are on the side of player safety and advancing the game from a skill level and taking a lot of that extra physicality that's not necessary out of the game. But you also have your traditionalists that basically frown on this whole thing and the way it happened. And, if you're going to hit a guy, you better be ready to fight. And so Turtlegate, as they're calling it, is not acceptable in their mind, because when a guy just turtles and doesn't choose to fight, they're not following, quote unquote, the code of the unwritten rule of how the players are supposed to play. And that's the thing. There've been guys like that forever. I mean, I could think of one in particular, Matthew Barnaby. He was a great one that used to do the same thing. Rarely did I ever see Barnaby actually get in a fight. A few times he did, but most of the time he instigated to the point where somebody threw a punch, and then he would fall or drop to the ice, and they'd get a penalty, and we'd go on the power play. I mean, that happened all the time when he played for the Penguins. But I mean, I know I just used the word the code, and I hate saying the code with the air quotes.
Right.
Those listening can't see my air quotes, but because it's cliche. But I mean, I don't know. Should Cassian got suspended? Yeah, probably 2 games. Sure, I don't argue with that at all. But I don't necessarily know that Kachuk should have been just left off the hook.
Yeah, I agree. I think 2 games was the right amount, and I'm excited to see those 2 teams play again. And okay, so Parish will be there watching and making sure nothing bad happens, or taking very detailed notes of what does happen.
Oh, I'm sure the scrutiny is going to be on, and every little thing is going to be looked at.
But until that happens, we still got to get through the All-Star break. So we got the All-Star Game coming up. I got to tell you, I've liked the All-Star Games 3-on-3 format. I went to an All-Star Game back in 91. I mean, that was many years ago, of course, and the games changed. And it was fun to see, but it was kind of a boring game. There were no penalties. I mean, there was a lot of scoring. Scoring's exciting. There wasn't really any hitting. There wasn't really much of anything, except seeing like the league's best players, and that's always fun. But it was just like nobody really, I mean, goals were scored because defense wasn't played. Goalies tried hard. Forwards tried hard. And then, they've gone through these different over the years, with North America versus the world, and obviously Eastern Conference versus Western Conference, or whatever they called it, Campbell Conference, Wales Conference. And then in 2016 they switched to the 3-on-3 format, and you'll recall that game that John Scott was named the MVP. I like the 3-on-3 format. I'm excited about the 3-on-3 format. That it's continuing. Not so excited about the jerseys. I think they're kind of lame. But I am excited that there's going to be a women's 3-on-3 hockey game. I'm really excited about that. My girlfriend, of course, is very excited about that.
It's great for hockey.
Yeah, it is. And I think, I mean, women's sports are a tough sell, because I look at like how like Chicago has a professional women's basketball team, the Chicago Sky, and I would watch some of the games on TV, and they wouldn't have a lot of people in the stands, and it's just how it is, I mean, and that can change. Obviously, sure. The women's, the Canadian Women's Hockey League folded, and the National Women's Hockey League has got believe it's 4 teams, and then I think they got a 5th team. I think they play against the Minnesota Whitecaps now. I don't know if those are exhibition matches or what, but
well, and the only way you're going to grow the game is to do things like this. I mean, you're right. There isn't a lot of attention that's placed on, that's placing women's hockey front and center to the average hockey fan. And last year when Kendall Coyne Schofield got to compete and participated, and I mean, the fact that she was able to go out there and just blaze across that ice, showing the speed that she had. I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, wait a minute, women play hockey too." Well, yeah. So it kind of brought some well-needed attention to the women's game. But you're right. I mean, they've been struggling so far with, having an organization that will accommodate all of the teams and all of the players.
Mm-hmm.
Like kind of like you said, there was a WNBA team in Chicago. Well, there isn't a WNHL in order to manage and control to where the NHL can take ownership and management of the league and basically handle it, as a top-notch organization. I think all the members that are participating in this are part of what the Women's Professional Hockey Organization, I think it's called. But everybody currently is boycotting the league due to a number of issues that are out there. So there's really no games being played as part of that. So, this is the one opportunity that you can bring together all of these athletes. What was I reading? There's between all of them that are participating, there's 30 some medals, 30 or 40 medals between them from the Olympics and over 100 world championships between all the participants. So, I mean, these aren't this isn't like a women's pickup game at the local rink. I mean,
no.
these are good players.
They got the best players for this women's 3-on-3. So I think that could be really exciting. I think they're building slowly. I mean, last year you had one woman participate in the skills competition. This year you have 2 teams of women playing 3-on-3. I think everybody's pretty much. I haven't heard anybody complain about the 3-on-3 hockey. It's fast-paced, it's exciting, it's end-to-end. Nobody has said it's boring. I mean, some people will say, oh, overtime is a gimmick or the shootout is a gimmick in as far as hockey is concerned. But for the All-Star Game, everybody likes it because it showcases all the things that we want to see about All-Stars. We want to see fast skating. We want to see great shooting. We want to see crisp passing. And when you have that much room out there, you're going to get all of that. You're not going to get the big hits in an All-Star game. I mean, unless Jeremy Roenick is playing, because he used to hit people in All-Star games. You
don't get any fights unless John Scott tries to fight Patrick Kane.
Well, Patrick Kane was the instigator.
Oh, either way.
I think that was Kane's only career NHL fight was
Does that even count as a fight though?
I don't know.
You're just goofing.
No, of course, obviously. That was funny, though, because Scott leveled Patrick Kane, and then Kane ended up picking up the puck and scoring a few moments later, and then he goes after Scott. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I mean, that's the kind of silliness you want to see in an All-Star game, or even think about the skills competition when Kane came out with the Superman cape.
PK Subban dressed up like Chewbacca the one year, and I think he dressed like Yager the other year.
Dude, that's funny stuff, and that's the kind of stuff we want to see. And the NHL is just too
everybody's dying for personalities, which is why guys that speak their mind and talk in front of the camera and stuff, love him or hate him, PK Subban's a personality, so a lot of people hate him.
That's too bad.
Guys like that have, I don't want to say larger than life personalities, but have somewhat of a personality that's beyond, the puck's in deep in that rote, script that you've been taught since you were 5 years old.
110%.
But yeah, so yeah, and that's exactly it. You brought up earlier when you were kind of going through the beginning is you don't see the hitting, and you don't see the fighting, and you don't see that kind of thing. You see high scoring a lot of times. And also, I've seen plenty of All-Star games where it's guys are just out there having a good time, and they're not really putting forth their best effort. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I think the women's game might even be more entertaining than the rest, because it's the U.S. versus Canada. It's the U.S. versus Canadian women that have gone up against each other in world tournaments numerous times,
right,
and have boiled over with tempers flaring and everything else so many times. So if anything, there could potentially be a fight in their All-Star game.
No, that wouldn't happen. Potentially, though. There's probably.
I think there's more potential there than there is with the men.
Yeah, that's true. And you know what? The women, I want to say they have more to gain from this. If this
exactly why I think that's going to be better hockey than the actual men.
If this is well received, then this could lead to just something bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like. I'll tell you really quick. I know this wasn't on the docket of things to talk about, but as long as we're talking about the women's game, this is what I'd like to see. NHL starts a women's league. They play in the summer. Start with 6 teams. The original 6, because if memory serves me correctly, all 6 of those teams, original 6 teams, the teams own the rinks that they play at. So they don't have to pay to lease it, not like that disaster in, say, Phoenix, right? Where, like, you know, the Arizona Coyotes and the rink and this and that, and they're trying to figure this out and blah, 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 and the money from concessions and all that stuff. No. Like, if there was, like, a Chicago team, the Blackhawks own the United Center. You know, Blackhawks and the Bulls own the United Center, right? And obviously, I mean, there'd be some scheduling problems, but, you know, with, like, concerts and stuff. But, like, this is what I would do. Make the women's league a summer league. Start with 6 teams. 6 teams that have strong NHL ownership. Again, Boston, Chicago, Detroit, etc. The original 6. Set a really small, modest budget. Say, like, I'm just spitballing here, $5 million, right? What's $5 million to the Boston Bruins?
Nothing.
Right, exactly. It's not like
$5 million to any professional sports team is like a drop in a bucket.
Right. You take $1 million of that, you make that you take $2 million of that. You have 20 players, give them each a salary of $100,000. Maybe not $100,000, maybe $75,000. Just make it respectable, right? None of this like playing for free or playing but have to stay close to home on the weekends or this, that, and the other thing because I need to keep my full-time job. Make it a summer thing.
Or everybody that wants to hire our band. Oh, you're playing for exposure.
Yeah, exposure, right. God. They do that to you. They do that to you too as a musician.
Not so much anymore. We know the ones to talk to and the ones not to.
That's good. That's good. So what I'd say is you put about $2 million into payroll, pay each women player $100,000, right? And then you put the other, say if we do a $5 million budget, the other $3 million obviously goes into marketing, promotion, travel. Now, are they going to make money the first year? No, this is going to be a loss leader. Everybody seems to think that this is going to make money the first year, as everybody has, I don't say everybody has said, but as I've heard repeated times, businesses usually need 5 years in order to turn a profit. It takes time to build a business. When you had like these upstart leagues like Roller Hockey International in the 1990s, people would, they'd pay their franchise fee and then they think they were going to start making money like right away. No, it took time for the league to grow. I mean, it took time for teams to become stable, for it to build a following and whatnot. And when you have teams fold after a season, obviously you're not going to make any money. So
the XFL.
Yeah, the XFL.
Or the AAF.
Oh, God. That's so funny. They didn't even get through their first season.
Tom Dundon had to try to save, and it didn't work.
That's hilarious. So that's how I would do it. I mean, again, I'm not a businessman. I'm not a financial major. I'm sure somebody could poke a lot of holes in my argument and say, well, Sal, this is why you're wrong for this, that, and the other thing. And that's okay. I'm just saying, like, if the original 6 teams said, you know what, we're going to commit $20 million over 5 years. So say $4 million a year. Put a little bit of that into salary, put some of that into marketing and promotion, and then eventually, grow it, because if I own a stadium, yeah, I could sell concerts at that stadium in the summer, but I'd love to get people into my stadium in the summertime, and if I already have a hockey rink, there you go. Tim, I'll tell you, man, I am so bored with summer because of no hockey. There's no hockey on TV. I mean, I could watch, a classic game or something, but I would, and I know that they're going to do this 3-on-3 league that's coming over the summer, the 3 ice, and I'm looking forward to that. But I mean, when roller hockey was a thing in the 90s, I tried to watch those games. I was so excited that there was something besides baseball. I mean, in the wintertime, there's so many choices of what to watch. And in the summer, you have baseball and soccer and maybe lacrosse.
Yeah, but most of those other things that are actually on TV or on like ESPN The Ocho. So if you want to watch anything that's not mainstream. So
what do you think of the All-Star uniforms this year, where they're basically using like those music bars and then they're just like doing like the team logos? To me, it looks like a pickup game almost. I play pickup hockey. They call it rad hockey. And, this team will wear light jerseys. This team will wear dark jerseys. So you have 10 guys wearing white jerseys, but they all have different logos on them because the important thing is that they're white. So it's just kind of funny that like, the All-Star game looks like a pickup game where like no two players are wearing the exact same jersey, but these guys are wearing white jerseys. So we know they're on one team, and these guys are wearing dark jerseys. So we know they're on the same team.
Do you just not like the fact that they're striped, or just overall? Because I've seen worse designed uniforms, but
well, let's keep it to All-Star uniforms.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of them. They kind of remind me of like an old-timey jersey, like pre-1930 style.
Oh, with the stripes?
Just those stripes. That's what kind of looks like that. I don't like the white ones. The white ones look silly. The gray ones are all right.
They're going to give them white pants with those, right? They're probably, I haven't seen the pants yet, but I'm betting they're going to be white pants. NHL has an infatuation with white pants lately.
I could see that. I haven't seen the full garb. I've only seen the jersey.
I look at these, and the first thing I said to myself was, wow, I like those ones with the neon green better. Remember the ones from 2015?
Oh, yeah.
That had the neon green on the sleeves?
Yeah.
And at the time we probably said, what the hell, right? But now I look at them and I go, okay, neon green, sure, why not?
Compared to this year, that's not too bad.
Neon green would have been great in about like 1996. It would have like rocked. But by 2016, it felt 20 years too late. Oh, yeah, and I'm looking at this one from 2018. Yeah, they had a white jersey, a gray jersey, a black jersey, and a blue jersey. I kind of want to see those 90s jerseys, the 80s and 90s, the orange and black, orange, black, and white.
Yeah.
The NHL had a thing in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s for orange, black, and white because they were just basically pulling the colors from their logo. Since the NHL changed its logo after the lockout in 2004, 2005, and in 05-06, they launched with the new logo where they replaced the orange with the silver, which looks a lot better. It looks a lot more modern, but I'm feeling nostalgic for like those 80s, 90s, when like Mario Lemieux had his like 4-goal game, those kinds of uniforms, if you remember.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, those were beauty.
I always wanted a jersey, but never got one.
I had a black All-Star jersey. I got it for Christmas of '89. Never did get a name or number put on it, but I did like having it. I still have it. It's still around. I mean, now you could buy some of them. I mean, even like somebody that I know, they had one from the '83 All-Star Game. It was a reproduction. It was part of the NHL Vintage Collection, but it was the orange one that said Campbell diagonal across the front. I don't know if I'd want that one. Too much orange is not my thing per se, but yeah, the late 80s or 89 through 91 is when and then 93, they really went to that design with the black, white, and the orange.
Too much orange is never good because then somebody might mistake you for a filthy fan.
Oh, a Philly fan?
Yeah, that's what I said, filthy.
Ah, I see. Yeah. So are you looking forward to the All-Star Game?
I think it's going to be interesting to watch. Like I said, I make sure I always watch the skills competition, and I'm definitely going to watch the 3-on-3 women's tournament. Whether you like the 3-on-3 overall tournament, I think it's here to stay. And each year there's always some new rule that they put in, and they change this little thing or they tweak this little thing. One year fans get to vote everybody. Another year they get to vote nobody. I think this year the captains got voted for by fans. And then Ovechkin said, no, I'm not going to the game and I'm taking my puck and going home. So now Chris Letang is the captain instead of Ovechkin. which I'm sure made plenty of Capitals fans happy. And then they voted. I think fans voted what did they call it? The last man standing or the last man in or something like that. But I don't know. Maybe I don't pay attention to previous years that much, but I think this year more than anything else, I've noticed so many injury replacements versus other years. Like there were guys that I wanted to see, play, but they've gone down with injury. Because like Letang's now the captain of the Metropolitan Division, but Ovechkin was picked as the captain, but Ovechkin's not going, and Letang wasn't even supposed to be there. Gensel was supposed to be there, but Gensel got hurt, so Letang was his replacement, and is now all of a sudden the captain.
That's hilarious.
So it's like you've gone from not an all-star to now you're the captain of the team. So there's been things like that, like, not to beat the dead horse of being a Homer Penguins fan or anything, but Tristan Jarry is going to the All-Star game, and he's filling in for what's his name? Corpusalo, yeah, from Columbus, because he went down with an injury. And so, you got Jacob Slavins going instead of Dougie Hamilton, because I don't know did you see Hamilton break his leg? That was nasty. If you go back and watch that, that was bad.
Hey, rewind a second though. Jarry, is he even the starter on the Penguins?
It's a question as to whether or not you can consider one versus the other a starter. Murray played some pretty bad hockey there for a while, and Jarry was brought in and played phenomenally. And with Crosby's injury and all the other injuries they've had, Jarry's basically helped keep this team afloat. So he seems to be getting the bulk of the workload, and Murray's kind of taking a back seat, which I don't necessarily disagree with, because honestly, if the Penguins are going to make, I shouldn't say we, because I'm not on the team, but if the Penguins are going to make a run in the later half of the year and try to make the playoffs, they're going to need a healthy, rested Matt Murray. Mm-hmm. So I don't mind it. And Jarry's been playing on his head, so why not let him in there? So that's kind of where that is. But but yeah, I mean, one injury after another. Not only that, who was supposed to be the coach of the Pacific? I think we discussed that already. Yeah, a guy that's fired. So what do you do there? So they actually. Rick Tocchet got the nod for that. So, how's that feel as a coach? You weren't picked as the coach of the team, but then all of a sudden this guy gets fired. Okay, you can be the coach. I think that's, how do you feel about that?
Oh, if I was talking, I'd be excited. There's 4 divisions. There's 7 or 8 teams per division. Not everybody. You don't need to have not everybody gets to coach in the All-Star game. So they picked the best coach. The best coach wasn't available for unforeseen circumstances. So they asked the next guy. That's fine. If I was talking, I wouldn't feel like insulted by that. I'd just be like, okay, cool. The other guy's not coaching the game. I'll coach the game. I think it's still an honor to be there. And if you're a coach, there's 2 awards for coaches. One is the Jack Adams. The other is if your team wins the Stanley Cup, then you don't care if you didn't win the Jack Adams. So after that, there's not a lot of accolades for coaches. So I would honestly, I think it's a lot of fun to be an all-star coach. And I wouldn't feel insulted. I'd probably feel more insulted if I was a player and they said, yeah, Alex Ovechkin doesn't want to play, so we're going to let you play in the All-Star game. But then again, I think as a player, I think the players who, somebody like Ovechkin, he gets tired of being in the All-Star games and he doesn't want to do it. Some fans, maybe like myself, feel that it's your duty to be there because the fans, the fans buy your jersey, they pay the tickets, they pay your salary. But then at the same time, I could understand, okay, now you're over 30 and you're tired and your team's going to make a deep playoff run and maybe you'd rather have the week off. Like, the first couple of All-Star games are novel and after like a while, then you're just like, oh, this again, right?
I could see that, but like you originally said, it is an honor. You know, it's an honor to be picked. It's an honor to be able to go. It's an honor to be able to play because you're viewed as elite amongst your and not that he has anything to prove because obviously he's elite and you know with what happened over this past weekend I'm starting to think and not that I'm on the bandwagon yet but I'm starting to think that he may actually break Gretzky's record but um so you know he's going to be mentioned in the top players of all time so it's not like he has anything to prove by playing in an all-star game or sitting it out but I mean Fleury's opted not to play too. Marc-Andre Fleury. And so they put Jacob Markstrom in there instead. Didn't they make a rule a couple years ago that if you don't play, you get suspended for a game or
Yeah,
two?
you have to sit out the next game. I mean, the thing is that I could not imagine Wayne Gretzky not going to an All-Star game.
And that's the other thing too. It's a different time. So yeah, I get the injury thing.
But could you imagine Ray Bourque saying no to an All-Star game? Could you imagine Steve Yzerman saying no to an All-Star game?
Can't imagine anybody from that era.
I mean, no, nobody from that era. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, Lemieux didn't play because he was hurt, right? Or Brett Hull didn't play one because he was hurt, but he still made an appearance.
Which I get that. I get that. If you can't play, you can't play. You have a concussion. You have a broken leg. You have a broken foot. You have whatever. You know, the one year I think Crosby came down with like the flu, didn't he? He played in the skills competition and then couldn't play in the game because he got the flu or something. Mm-hmm. So it was like, I get it. But to just opt out, you'd be like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. The Ovechkin one rubs me the wrong way, I think, because I feel like he's smiting the league because they won't let him go play in the Olympics. I don't know. I'm not in his head, so I can only speculate.
Well, the Olympics was, oh yeah, that's right. The Olympics was in 2018, and did he play in the last two All-Star games? I think he did the same thing last year, didn't he?
Yeah, so, I mean, it is what it is. And like I said, I haven't seen most years' statistics to see, but I feel like this year there's been more injury replacements than any other year.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that. But, other than Fleury and Ovechkin, they're the only two in recent memory. I think Crosby bowed out once just because you're right. Old era guys, I could never see them doing that. Really couldn't.
One thing that's kind of funny though is that there are a lot of replacements, but like the replacement players, and I don't mean that in any sort of disrespectful way, they're damn good players. I mean, because you have such small all-star rosters that okay, so this player can't play, so somebody else fills in for them, and they're still an all-star. You know what I mean? Back when you had 21 teams, I know, showing my age again, but when you had 21 teams, 22 teams, and then you had to fill not even 18 skaters and 2 goalies because they expanded it to 18 skaters and 3 goalies, and then a commissioner's pick on either side. So you actually had 19 skaters, 3 goalies. Then when you had like the expansion teams that weren't very good, and it was like, okay, well, we got to pick somebody from the Ottawa Senators. Oh man, you know what I mean? Like, we got to pick somebody from the Tampa Bay Lightning. You know what I mean? It was just like, it was harder then. Or like when you had like North America versus the world, and it's like, wait, there's one player from Poland. Okay, well, we need to pick them so that Poland is represented. You know what I mean? And you got some guys that were like NHL players and maybe solid NHL players, but not necessarily all-star players. And the Ottawa Senator I'm referring to is Peter Sidorkovich. He was in a thankless position as the number 1 goalie for the Ottawa Senators their first year, and he was put in the All-Star game, and rightly so, because he was a workhorse for them. And on another team, he would have had better stats, obviously. I mean, I remember watching him play for the Hartford Whalers, and he was a decent goaltender. But, here it's like, okay, so somebody drops out, and you get, okay, so Ovechkin's out, and Chris Letang is in, and, hey, Letang's a good defenseman. Speaking of Letang, did you watch the Bruins and Penguins play on Sunday?
I actually missed that game.
Oh, man.
I saw the Thursday game where they got shellacked, but I missed the weekend game because we were busy.
So Brad Marchand and Chris Letang got entangled because Marchand was trying to, mess with Letang and get him off his game and stuff. And he actually did. But it almost looked like they were like Letang wanted to beat the crap out of him. And I was like, oh man, I want to see that fight happen. Letang would beat the snot out of him, but it didn't get to that.
Yeah, it usually doesn't.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just like, I'm watching this and I'm like, oh yeah, I'd love it if the refs just backed off and said, all right, go for it, boys.
Is Marchand? No, Marchand didn't go. Who's there from Boston? Pasternak. That's right.
Pasternak. Yeah.
Because Tuukka Rask was named too, but he's not playing either. He's hurt. So they took Vasilevsky. There's 19 players. This is their first time going to an All-Star game.
No, that I didn't know.
Yeah, there's 19 players. So the Pacific Division and the Metropolitan both have 6 first-timers on the list.
Well, that's pretty exciting. To get some new players in there. Obviously, some fan favorites mixed in with some. Mitch Marner's first one, but Austin Matthews' fourth one.
Yeah, Matthews has gotten in pretty much every year, but they've got Marner's new, Huberdeau, which I can't believe. I can't believe this is Huberdeau's first trip to the All-Star game. That's a crime right there. But Tyler Bertuzzi, Anthony Duclair, both going for the first time. Freddie Anderson got picked for the first time. The Metros got Nico Hischier and Travis Konechny, and TJ Oshie replaced Ovechkin. So that's his first All-Star game. Panarin, he's going. It's his first. I mean, Panarin's a beast for the Rangers right now. And we've already mentioned Jari. This is his first time, but he's a replacement. Jacob Slavin's first time. He's a replacement. David Perron finally gets to go, which I think is great. He's never been to an All-Star game before.
Who do you think's going to be MVP? And me not just doing anything, just looking here. Let's see here. Who's central? Who's playing for St. Louis? Perron and Ryan O'Reilly. Patrick Kane, Mark Scheifele. I don't know if the home team's going to win it. There's no reason to believe that they would win it more so than another one. So maybe I'll just throw out a crazy pick here.
Are we picking MVP or are we picking winners of the games?
Let's just pick an MVP. I know that sucks because if your team if they get eliminated, then yeah.
I'm gonna go with Nathan MacKinnon.
Okay, that's a good one.
Nathan MacKinnon is my choice for MVP. I think the Central Division takes it on the home court.
Who do I want to pick? Yeah, because Pacific and Central are playing, and I don't know. For some reason, I'm leaning towards Thomas Hertl just because. It's his first All-Star game. Obviously, a lot of these players are creative, but we've seen what Hertl could do with a lot of room. This is his first All-Star game, so I'm not saying he has a lot to prove, but he just seems like one of those guys that is just going to, I don't want to say come from nowhere, but how you have guys again, I'm going to refer back to the 91 All-Star game when Vincent Damphousse was named MVP. He had 4 goals that game. And people who knew Vincent Damphousse would be like, oh yeah, he's a good player. I could see him winning MVP back in the day, or people who knew him from Toronto. But if I tell people that now, it's really? He was the MVP that game? Not Gretzky, not Lemieux, not Yzerman. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna say
no, that's a good pick. Hurdle's a stud on a not so good team.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Hertl.
It honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that there has to be somebody representative of every team, he's not there. Right. So the fact that the Sharks had to have somebody on the list, he's as good as anybody. It was supposed to be Logan Couture, though, but obviously he broke his ankle. But that's a good pick. I still go with Nathan MacKinnon. I think the Central wins it. I think MacKinnon scores a hat trick, at least one.
With 3-on-3, that's more likely to do, yeah, and that's what makes it fun.
That's why I'm saying at least one. He scores at least one hat trick. And honestly, I say the Central beats the Pacific. I'm going to say the Atlantic beats the Metro because the Atlantic's firepower is much more capable, I think. And then they lose to the Central. That's what I'm going with.
Well, all right. We're interested to know who you think is going to win the game or win MVP. So if you want to leave a comment or hit us up on Twitter, I'm at PuckJunk. Tim is at TheRealDFG. But until next time, thank you for listening to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe on iTunes, Google Play Music, or wherever you subscribe to podcasts.
For more hockey goodness, follow us on Twitter at PuckJunk.